Okay, let's unpack this. Usually when you do something good, there's this expectation of a clean, positive feedback loop, like a really simple closed-circuit transaction.
Right, an action, a reaction, and a reward. It feels balanced.
Yeah, exactly. You hold the elevator door for someone running late, they say thank you, and you get that little warm glow of satisfaction.
And it makes perfect evolutionary sense, really. I mean, our brains literally reward us for pro-social behavior.
But then you step into the modern digital world, and everyone has a camera in their pocket, right?
Yeah.
And a platform to broadcast to the entire planet.
Oh, yeah. The whole game changes.
It really does.
Yeah.
Suddenly, that simple transaction is just completely distorted. You do something with totally good intentions, and it gets stripped of context, thrown online, and suddenly you're navigating this moral landscape that is utterly exhausting.
Because the context is entirely out of your hands at that point.
Exactly.
And that modern ethical minefield is exactly what we are unpacking today.
Welcome to this deep dive. Because our mission today is to explore excerpts from a truly fascinating philosophical narrative. It's called Finding the Way, the States of the Human Soul. And we're specifically looking at scenes 7 through 10.
Which is such a rich section of the text.
It really is. And just to set the stage for you listening, this text follows a group of contemplative companions. There's Roger, a nephew, an aunt, and an uncle. And they use dialogue, meeting in this virtual room, to navigate the emotional weight of morality, the ego, and, what it actually means to be a good person today.
Yeah, and the core theme we are looking at here is incredibly relevant for you no matter what your day-to-day life looks like.
For sure.
It focuses heavily on the daily struggle to maintain ethical consistency in a world that constantly demands external validation, but also constantly misinterprets it.
Right.
We're looking at how we protect ourselves when the world misreads us, and how we might actually transcend those very defenses.
Because before we can even begin to talk about how to, elevate our souls or reach some higher state of being, we have to look at the very grounded modern struggle of just trying to be good in a noisy world.
The everyday reality of it.
Yeah, the everyday mess. The text uses a dialogue between these companions to explore this. And one of them, a character named Roger, goes through something I think we've all felt on some level, which is massive social media distortion.
It's such a modern anxiety.
It really is.
Yeah.
So Roger performs this quiet act of intervention. He steps in to help in a tense situation on the street, but of course it gets caught on camera, completely stripped of its context and misrepresented by a viral video.
Which is pretty much a nightmare scenario for anyone trying to maintain their integrity. I mean, an act of private goodness becomes a public spectacle.
And the public gets the story entirely backwards.
Exactly. The internet effectively drafts a totally new reality where your good deed is suddenly a malicious act.
And it completely drains him. Being misunderstood on that massive scale makes you want to just throw your hands up and give up.
It's exhausting.
It makes me think about a comparison. It's like working out alone in your garage versus posting gym selfies.
Okay, I like that.
Right. Like if you're lifting weights in your garage, the muscles still grow. The physical benefit is happening, even if literally no one likes it or, comments on your form. The work is the reward.
The intrinsic value is still there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But hold on. The text suggests we shouldn't be exhausted by this public misunderstanding. But doesn't it naturally exhaust us? I mean, aren't we hardwired to care? We are social creatures. Being ostracized or misrepresented by the tribe feels like a literal threat to our physical survival.
We absolutely feel that primal threat, yes. But the narrative makes a really crucial philosophical pivot here.
Okay, what's the pivot?
Well, the exhaustion Roger is feeling doesn't actually come from the act of doing right, or even inherently from the misunderstanding itself.
Wait, really? Then where does it come from?
The exhaustion stems from a hidden, often subconscious desire for public approval.
Oh, wow. So our own ego is what's actually draining our batteries.
Right.
We think the internet is exhausting us, but it's really just our own internal PR manager working overtime.
You nailed it. That's exactly it. If you are truly doing something just because it is the right thing to do, the external reaction, even a super hostile one, shouldn't deplete your internal moral reserves.
Because you didn't do it for them.
Right. The exhaustion is just the friction between your action and your secret hope for applause. True goodness, as they discuss in this virtual room, exists without the need for external context.
It's powerful.
Yeah. These companions realize that ethical consistency isn't a one-time performance for an audience. It's a habitual, conscious discipline, an internal commitment that you just have to renew daily.
Regardless of whether anyone else is watching, or even if the people watching get it entirely wrong.
Exactly. When you detach the act of goodness from the expectation of a reward, you stop bleeding energy. You stop managing the PR of your morality and simply, well, inhabit the morality itself.
That is a tough pill to swallow, honestly. But the mechanics of it make so much sense.
It does.
But dealing with a world that constantly misrepresents us is painful. And because of that pain, we naturally try to build emotional defenses, right? Like, if people are going to misunderstand me, I'm just going to put up a wall.
It's a totally natural defense mechanism.
This leads the characters to a profound realization about how we protect our egos. So another companion, referred to as the nephew, notes that people today, especially in high-stress environments, want to remain like ice.
Ice. Yeah.
He describes this state as hard, distant, untouchable.
And the aunt immediately understands the psychology driving this. She points out that people choose to be ice because they think that if they melt, it will hurt.
Right. The vulnerability of being anything other than solid just feels way too risky.
Exactly. And Roger adds another layer to this, noting that sometimes the ego hardens not just to protect itself, but to avoid feeling altogether. Yes, numbness becomes the ultimate goal. If you're a block of ice, you don't feel the sting of the viral video or, the sharp passive-aggressive comment in a meeting, or the disappointment of a friend canceling plans. You are solid, impervious.
What's fascinating here is how the uncle in the group, who speaks very deliberately, by the way, shifts this entire paradigm.
Yeah.
He doesn't tell them they're wrong about the ego being ice, but he expands the physics of the metaphor.
He introduces new states of matter.
Yeah. He points out that while the ego can be ice, it can also be water, or even vapor.
Which completely changes the conversation.
Totally. Think about the literal physics of ice. Uncle says ice hurts when it collides with another. If you have two people who have hardened their egos to avoid pain, and they interact, they just clink against each other.
It's an abrasive collision.
Exactly.
They bounce off one another, and often they chip or crack in the process. Neither absorbs anything from the other. But water, Uncle explains that water makes contact in a completely different way.
It merges.
It merges. It flows. Water doesn't bounce off. When a drop of water meets another drop of water, they become one larger body. They share the same space. They adapt to the container they are in.
It represents a state of being where the ego is fluid, vulnerable, and capable of true empathy.
Yeah.
And the aunt immediately sees the implication of this. She realizes that the concept of we-like, true, unshielded human connection is like a pool. And Uncle confirms that where there is warmth, even ice dissolves.
That warmth is compassion. It's understanding. It's the environment that allows that hardened defensive ego to feel safe enough to let go of its rigid protective structure and just become fluid again.
I want you, the listener, to really picture this in your own life for a second. Yeah. Think about your last really stressful interaction.
Oh, we've all had one recently.
Right. Let's say it was a tense meeting at work where two departments were defending their budgets. Everyone is digging their heels in, citing spreadsheets, refusing to yield an inch.
A classic ice storm.
Exactly. In those moments, you are acting like ice. You are trying to be hard and distant to avoid the vulnerability of admitting your department might need to compromise. And every time you collide as ice in that boardroom, it hurts. It causes fractures in the working relationship.
So true.
What would it look like in that specific moment to melt, to flow like water? To actually merge with the other person's perspective, absorb their anxiety about their own team, and find the we in that pool.
It's a terrifying prospect for the ego, honestly, because melting feels like losing your defensive boundaries. You feel exposed.
But it is mechanically the only way to achieve actual connection and resolution.
Precisely. You can't merge if you're solid.
But the conversation of the text doesn't stop at water.
Yeah, it goes further.
Right, because if water represents how we connect with others locally, as a we, what happens when we elevate beyond our immediate interpersonal connections? How do we relate to the world as a whole? Roger thoughtfully asks Uncle the obvious next question in the sequence. He says, and vapor.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Uncle's response here is incredibly profound. He says that vapor is the state that draws near to leaving behind the I and saying he.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Leaving behind the I. Wait, does that mean total self-erasure?
A lot of people worry about that.
Yeah, because if I evaporate, I don't exist anymore to actually do the good deeds we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
If I lose my identity completely, who is holding the elevator door? Who is intervening in the street?
That is the universal fear of transcendence, right? That enlightenment equals erasure. But the text explicitly anticipates this concern. Uncle specifically points out that while the vapor rises, it does not disappear.
Oh, interesting.
The molecules of water are still entirely present. They have just become less dense, less bound by the gravity of the immediate situation, and capable of filling a much larger space.
So it's about transcendence, not erasure. Your perspective expands.
Precisely. Water is about it's a horizontal connection between people on the ground. Vapor is vertical, it rises.
Right, okay.
Leaving the I behind means stripping away the ego's constant need to center itself in the narrative. Saying he, which in philosophical and spiritual texts often represents the ultimate truth, the divine, or just the highest moral order, means you are aligning your will with something universally good far above your own personal desires or reputation.
The nephew synthesizes this for the group in a way that makes it really concrete. He realizes that while egos melt through compassion to become water, they rise when they realize they are entrusted.
Entrusted. That word carries massive psychological weight.
It really does.
It completely reorients your locus of identity. It implies stewardship. It implies that your existence isn't just about you defending yourself or even just you comforting someone else in a pool of water, but that you have a responsibility to a higher purpose.
Let's ground this with a real-world example. Say you are a manager and an employee makes a massive, costly mistake.
Ouch. Okay.
The ice reaction is to blast them publicly to protect your own reputation. You collide with them. The water reaction is to sit down, empathize, share the blame, and merge your perspectives to feel better. But the vapor reaction is realizing you are entrusted with this person's long-term career and the ultimate health of the organization.
In that vapor state, the ego is out of the equation completely. You aren't worried about how the mistake makes you look, nor are you just trying to soothe feelings. You rise above the immediate friction to ask, what is the highest, most universally good action I can take here as a steward of the situation?
It's a totally different mindset.
Exactly. When you realize you are entrusted with a life, with talents, or with a moral duty, your ego stops needing to be the center of the universe. It becomes light. It rises.
And Uncle brings this sequence to a beautiful conclusion. He tells them that it is in this transcendence of all three states, understanding when you are ice, melting into water, and rising as vapor, that true justice, peace, tranquility, and sisterhood and brotherhood are born.
It's the moment the group realizes their search has found a clear direction. They aren't just philosophizing in a vacuum anymore. They have a tangible map of human emotional states. Ice, water, vapor.
Okay, so having a profound philosophical epiphany in a quiet virtual room with your contemplative companions is great. But what happens when you log off?
Right, the real world.
Yeah. How does this map of ice, water, and vapor actually survive the morning commute? When your alarm goes off, when that viral video is still misrepresenting you, when someone cuts you off in traffic, how do you apply it?
This raises an important question because the transition from the theoretical to the practical is where most philosophies fail. But the text addresses this head-on in Scene 10. The characters return to their daily lives, but they are fundamentally changed by this new mental model.
Roger, who is so exhausted by the world's misunderstanding, now has a new internal mechanism. He doesn't obsess over the internet comments anymore.
He's let go of that PR manager.
Exactly. Whenever he feels that friction, that exhaustion, he pauses and asks himself a simple diagnostic question. Am I ice, water, or vapor?
Such a great tool.
It is. And the nephew, who we can assume used to be quite argumentative, now raises his voice less and listens more. He's actively practicing being water in his daily interactions.
And the aunt continues her small, unseen acts of kindness, living that unvalidated goodness they discussed at the very beginning without needing anyone to witness it.
It's beautiful.
It is. And Uncle addresses this ongoing application in his final message to the group. Finding the path, having that massive epiphany, is not the finish line. He warns them, he says, do not think the path has been found. The path is chosen anew every day.
I love that. It destroys the illusion of permanent enlightenment. You don't just achieve vapor status on a Tuesday and get to float above the fray forever. Every single morning, you have to wake up and consciously decide not to be ice.
Because the world will constantly give you reasons to freeze back up. Someone will misunderstand you, someone will threaten your ego, and the reflex to turn to ice will be immediate.
It's human nature.
Right. So Uncle leaves them, and by extension leaves you, the listener, with a distillation of his parting wisdom, a practical guide for this daily choice. He says, if you are ice, do not be afraid to melt.
Lean into the vulnerability. Let go of the numbness.
If you are water, do not hesitate to unite.
Find the we. Merge with the perspectives around you.
And if you have become vapor, do not forget what remains behind as you rise.
So what does this all mean for us? It means this isn't the end of the journey. When Roger asks if the work is over, Uncle smiles and says it has only just begun from a firm place.
The journey continues.
As the ant says, let us keep walking. This first cycle of their exploration is complete, but the path continues quietly. The text gives us a fascinating tease for the upcoming second cycle. It's titled, Remaining Human on the Path, Walking Through the Fog.
Oh, that's a great title.
Right. And the core question it will explore is, what does a person do when, having found the path, they suddenly encounter the loud, chaotic crowd?
Because it is one thing to be vapor in solitude, reading a book, or reflecting in your garage. It is entirely another to maintain that transcendent state when surrounded by a frantic crowd of people who might be entirely made of defensive ice.
We want to thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us today. The text is dense, but you don't need to be a philosopher to use its tools. Tomorrow, when you are faced with a frustration at work, a burning desire to defend yourself against a misunderstanding, or that sudden craving for external validation, you don't need to read a textbook.
You really don't.
You can simply pause, take a breath, and ask yourself Roger's question. Am I ice, water, or vapor? It is a remarkably fast, powerful way to check your own ego.
And as you ponder that question tomorrow, I want to leave you with one final thought to explore on your own. It's something that wasn't explicitly resolved in the text, but it lingers in Uncle's final warning.
Okay, what is it?
He tells the vapor not to forget what remains behind as it rises. Think about the physical water cycle. Vapor rises, it forms clouds, it achieves that vertical distance. But eventually, the physics demand that it must condense, it must rain.
Wow, okay.
So what is the actual responsibility of the vapor to the ice below? If reaching a higher moral state means you have risen above the coldness, the ego, and the collisions of the world, does that enlightenment inherently obligate you to rain back down? Do you have a fundamental duty to pour yourself back over the frozen parts of the world, to help melt the ice in others, even if it means you have to descend from the heights of your own hard-won tranquility?
That is a brilliant question to carry forward. Enlightenment might not just be about rising. It might be about what you do when you come back down. Until next time, keep walking the path.
Goodbye, and thank you for listening.